Hey folks, this is kind of a continuation, part two of the Excel 9. And just so you can kind of see income statements, um, basically we're going to go keep working on this spreadsheet we had worked on before, and it's called the Hollow Lease. And it's looking a little bit like this right now. So we've done some work in the loan analysis. We've done some work here in the loan schedule, which is kind of like the amortization schedule here. And then there was a little bit of stuff that we added for this startup. Okay, so on page 20, I suggest that you look at the images on page 20 and 21. Look at those little green bubbles and then just begin to look at some of the words that are being used here. Um, Again, some of these things may be beyond what you're going to need to know in the future, but I would recommend that you do a little dictionary with what some of these things actually do. And frequently, this is how people get jobs, is they do a little bit of studying on things that they don't know too much about, and then they move forward in their careers this way. So on page 22, we're going to go to the income statement on the Hollow Lease document. So I'm in the income statement. Looks pro forma income statement is what it says. And if I look over on page 23, there's an image of the linear and growth trends. Some of this, I think sometimes it's out of context. So they're explaining all this, but you don't really know anything about what this business is doing. So if it seems confusing, it probably is, because it would be for me too. The only reason I seem more familiar is that I've done this a whole bunch of times. Um, but if somebody asked me questions about the specific business, I wouldn't have it. So basically, in a nutshell, this is all. So I'm on page 23, 9-23. We're going to project future revenue based on a linear trend. So we want to go to cell B8. Whoops, B8. And we're going to enter 1 with 6 zeros after it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's the year 1 revenue. And then we're going to go over to cell F8, and we're going to enter 25 and 5 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 2.5. So 1 million and 2.5 million. And we're going to select the range B8 through F8. And on the Home tab in the Editing group, Home tab, Editing group, we're going to choose the Fill button and then click Series. Okay, so hover over top of these things. So that's your auto sum, that's your fill, and this one is the series. So we want to fill a series. So it's kind of like you don't know what the pattern looks like, and you want Excel to figure it out. You know what it looks like at the beginning and the end. And in the rows, okay, so we've got series in rows. We've got linear option as the type, and we have the trend. We want to have a checkbox or a check mark in the trend. This is the image at the top of page 24. So make sure um, your dialog box looks the same as this. Okay. So once you have that set up, you can choose OK, and now you can begin to see how it filled all of those things in. So it figured out the beginning, the end, and it divvied them up between those other three values there. And if you look inside those cells, it's not a formula. It's done an actual calculation to figure out what's inside of there. So that's the image on page 24 of what that is. sales income is looking like. So to project future revenue, I'm at the bottom of page 24. Project future revenue assuming growth. Select the range C8 through E8. So C8 through E8. I've got those selected, and then they're asking you to delete it. And then select the range B8 through F8 again. Okay? And on the Home tab in the editing group, we're going to do that same thing. Choose the fill, choose the series. Whoops. No, not that one. This one. Fill series. This time we're going to do growth. Okay? So the series in rows, growth, and then box change back to edit. And now choose OK. So with this option, what you can see is it's actually changing it by a constant percentage. Okay? So it's interpolating this, is what it says in the picture, and it says the revenue are increasing about 26% each year. Okay, I'm on page 26 right now. Take a quick look at the picture at the bottom, just so you know what we're trying to do here. But make sure your row 8 looks like their row 8 in the image. Otherwise, your numbers aren't going to match up, and it might get confusing. Okay, so back up to the top of page 26. In cell F3, so we want to go to cell F3. These are the green boxes. This is going to be 25%. F4 is going to be 15%. And in cell B9, let's go to cell B9. We're going to enter the formula equals B8 times F3. We're going to change that F3 to an absolute. Okay. And it should come up with 250,000. So B10, B10, it's going to be equals B8 times F4. And press your F4 key, actually, and it'll make that absolute cell reference for you. Okay, in cell B11, this is going to be equals B8 minus, left parenthesis, B9, B10. And then close your parentheses. It's going to look like that. Okay, so we should come up with 600,000 in, that is not correct, is it? I must have done something incorrectly. Let's go back and look. So B9, B8 times F3, that's 250. If I go down to the next one, B8 times F4, and you probably already spotted my error. So my error was in cell F4, I fat fingered that one instead of 15, instead of the 12 that I have, it's supposed to be 15. And so when I make that change, these values become correct again. Okay, so we want to copy the formulas in the range B9 through B11, and we're going to drag them all the way over to 11, to F11. And they should show something like that. Let me get out of that. Okay, so check your image at the bottom of the book there, and I'll also give you the formulas here. So pause if you need to. Okay, so I'm on page 27. I'm on page 27. Step 1. It says in the range B14 through B19, enter the following general expense values. Okay, so B14 through B19. So 430, 000, 60, 000, 25, 000, 50, 000, 25, 000, and then for miscellaneous, 15, 000. Okay, so this is what that's looking like there. So those are the values. Okay, those are all values. There's no formulas in there at all. So in cell B20, they want you to use the sum of those cells up above. B14 through B19. You could try to use the auto sum, but there's a bunch of weird things in here. It might actually grab some stuff that you didn't want it to. Simple enough to just do that. So we should come up with 605,000. That's the end of page 27. We're just extrapolating from year 1 over to year 5. So we want to select the range B14 through F14. Okay. And on the Home tab, we're going to grab that series again. And we're going to choose Fill. Whoops. Series. Fill. Okay. And growth is going to be the option. And then we're going to use the step value of 1.10. So that's the step value. And look at the image on page 28. Make sure you've got rows, you've got growth, you've got no check mark and trend, and you have a step value of 1.1. And that should come up with 629-ish. So select the range B15 through F19. And we're going to choose Fill Series. And the growth option is going to be 1.05 in the step value box. Then we're going to choose OK. Actually, I forgot to choose growth. Okay, growth 1.05. And this gives you, basically, we're just kind of doing what we did for a whole bunch of them simultaneously. Okay, so we want to copy the formula that we have here in cell B20. So we can copy that and then bump it over all the way to F20. Whoops. You can look over at page 29. Should actually look like. So instead of going through and looking at all the individual values, you might be able to just go to the total general expense row and pop through each one of these and just make sure it's got what you want inside of it. And you can just compare that. So I'm pretty close. I've looked at it enough. But I'm double checking it. I just want to make sure you all know that I am double checking everything. So to calculate the company's initial earnings, we want to go to cell B23, and this one's going to be B11 minus B20. And that's going to subtract the total general expenses from the gross profit for the first year. And if I'm looking at that correctly, it looks like about $5,000 loss. So we're going to take that B23 and we're going to carry that across. So that B23 gets carried across from C23 to F23. And then look at the image on page 29 and just make sure you're matching up here. Mine looks correct. So hopefully none of you are laughing at me. Okay. So depreciation. Depreciation. We know what appreciation is. Depreciation is kind of the opposite, and it usually refers to money. So how much money are you not losing, but how much useful life and value is it losing each year? And usually we depreciate assets maybe by 5 years. Some things go quicker than that. So for example, at CWC, computers are depreciated over the course of 4 years. And at the end of the 4th year, we get rid of them unless something goes haywire. If you run a rental car agency, you don't keep the cars forever. You might keep them for a year. You might keep them for 2 years. You may keep them for a certain number of miles. So that's depreciation. Okay, so 9-31. We want to go to the startup worksheet right next door. I'm going to just quickly save my work just for fun. We want to go to cell B13, so the green one, B13, long-term assets. And this one's going to be 300 000, $300,000. Okay, there's an actual worksheet here, and it's called depreciation. So we're clicking on this one now. Okay, so we're going to the depreciation, and in cell B4, let's get a formula going, type equal sign, and then go to startup worksheet and click on cell B13. B13. And then press the enter key. It takes you back here. And then the formula that we just entered was this. Okay, so it's just a cell reference basically. That's going to be $300,000. In cell B5, this one's going to be 75,000. And then in cell B6, 10 is going to be the useful life of the asset itself. Okay, so they're considering it after 10 years. They may keep it, but they're thinking right now that it's only going to last 10 years. This helps for budgeting and various other things. Okay, at the bottom of page 31, we're going to calculate the straight line depreciation. Okay, so in cell B10, go to cell B10. We're going to type equals SLN, and this is B4, B5, B6. B4, B5, B6. I'll close that up, and I need to make these absolute cell references. Again, I'm using the F4 key on my keyboard. Back to working now. And when I press enter, it should come up with okay, B4. Okay, 22.5. That looks correct. Okay, so let me show you the formula again. So this is what we've got right now. So we have a reference to the startup worksheet here to get that value. And then this one is the straight line depreciation. That's what that function means. And it should equal 22,500. We're going to copy the formula in cell B10 and pull it all the way over to F10. And let's just make sure that, okay, great. We have absolute cell references, so those are going to remain the same. In cell B11, we're going to enter the formula equals B10. Okay, so it's just carrying that down. And then in C11, we're going to copy the formula in cell C11. Whoops. So B11, let's just double check this. B11 equals B10. C11, missed this one, equals B11 plus C10. Okay, and that's 45. And we're going to copy C11 over into F11. Look at the image at the bottom just to double check and make sure that's correct. Looks the same. We're working on row 11. We haven't done row 12 yet. Okay, so if that's good, we'll go to cell B12 equals B4 minus B11. Make this an absolute cell reference, $B, $4. And then we are going to, whoops, darn it. Okay, let's do that again. Equals B4 minus B11. Okay. That's in B12. That does not look correct. And that does now. Okay. I'll show you the formulas here in just a second. We want to copy whatever I just typed here in B12 and move that all the way over to F12. Okay, so just to be clear, this is what this should look like. Move this over so you can see it all. Okay. And when I look at the image at the bottom of page 32, mine looks the same now that I fixed it. Okay. Moving on to page 33. In cell B16, the formula is basically calculate declining balance. Okay, that's the DB formula, and that's going to be B4, comma, B5, comma, whoops, didn't get that. B5, comma, B6, comma, and then B15. We'll close the parentheses, and then I need to make these some absolute cell references. Everything but the last one. So notice I'm not typing these dollar symbols in. I'm using the quick key to do that. And so it's, oh, wait a minute. I have a problem here with 2 commas. I'm working up here right now. So when I fix my errors, I come up with 38,700. dot. And if I grab this B16 and I want to copy that all the way over to that 5th year, I'm double checking what's in the image at the bottom of page 33. 22, yep. Okay, cell B16, that's good. Copy the formula in the range B11 through F12. So B11 through F12, and then we'll copy that and paste it in the range B17 through F18. Okay, so I'm just going to click there, paste that. I think that's good. I'm going to double check my work here, and I'll give you this while I'm doing that. I think we're good. Okay. So we have just a couple more things to do on this section. I'm at the bottom of page 34. Okay, so there's some information about depreciation at the top of that page. I'm not going to spend too much time with that, but if you're interested, that's where you can find those details. Bottom of page 34. Go to the income statement worksheet. Income statement. Go to cell B24. B24. We're going to go equals. We're going to go back to depreciation worksheet. We're going to find cell B16. I found B16. I'm going to press enter. And we have the depreciation cost there, 38,700. So copy B24 all the way over to F24. Correct? Yes. Okay. We want to go to cell B25, and B25 equals B23 minus B24. Okay, so those two values up above should come up with 43.7, and it does. Okay. And then we want to copy that all the way over to the right. And that should give you 635, 450 in that year 5 for the profit. Okay, I'm moving over to page 35. So in cell B27, this is interest expenses. So we're going to do equals minus, which is basically going to turn whatever it is we do into a negative or the opposite number. And now go to the loan schedule worksheet and click on cell B36. And if you get messed up, just start over, okay? Because sometimes people click around and they get weird things. So that's B36. And press enter. So when it comes back, it's going to show it up as a positive number because it was a negative number actually. Okay. So 3838. In cell B28, we want to type equals B25 minus B27. That subtracts interest from profit. Comes up with 74,538. And that's a negative number because it's in parentheses, obviously. So we want to copy these two all the way over into that last row or column we've been working with. Okay, so that gives you kind of an idea here. If you look on page 36, you should be able to kind of compare what you've got with what they've done. We have a couple more things. I'd recommend that you check your work now before we go on to the next spot. So make sure that line 28 ends in 637.85. Okay, we're going to calculate tax liability. So use the F5 of the income statement worksheet. So go to cell F5. Okay. And this one's going to be 32%. Oof. And then go to cell B30. So I'm in cell B30. This is taxes liability. And this is going to become an if statement. So if B28 is greater than 0, comma, then B28 times F5. We need to make that. I'm going to do this now before I forget. So it's going to be an absolute. Whoops. Nope. F5, comma. Make it an absolute. Do my work. And then, or else 0. And we'll close that. Oops. So if B28 is greater than 0, then it gets B28 times F5. Too many commas, Matt. So many commas. Why did I put so many commas in there? Okay. So there should be 3 segments, which means 3 segments. If B, I'm going to double check my work. If B28 is greater than 0, comma, then it's B28 times $F $5, or else it's a 0. Okay, so here's my formula. Let's just show you this because this is an interesting issue. So this is the cell that we're working with. If B28 greater than 0, then it gets B28 times F25, comma, else it's going to show a 0. Okay, mine is actually displaying a dash, which is like, what the heck? So the explanation for you here is it's not incorrect. It has to do with the format. So if I go up and I do a general format for this, because before it was more of an accounting format, it now displays a 0. If I changed it to a number, so you can kind of see these different responses for this. If I add accounting format, it puts a dollar symbol and it remains a dash. Okay, so that's part of the reason why this if statement is kind of a weird thing. It's supposed to be a 0, but I'm going to undo this and leave it all the way it was originally, just so you can kind of see how this is going to play out. Okay. So if it's going to do that, it's going to give you a dash. So in cell B31, whoops, B31, we're going to type the equal sign B28 and minus that by B30. Okay. So when I do that, you're going to see some other value there. So we want to grab these two, and we're going to carry those across all the way into that final column there. Now, the reason why the 0 is important is because if we literally had a dash in there, none of these other values would work. It wouldn't be able to add things up. So despite the fact that it's not showing up as a 0 here, it's still able to calculate. So because behind the scenes, it's truly a 0. Okay, so take a look at that picture on the bottom of page 36 and make sure that looks correct to you. I'll give you the formulas here one last time so you can kind of see what that looks in that last line. It's going to look a little bit like that. Okay, that's the end of part 2. Got one more section to do.